Sarah Rae, welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. This is part 2 to the Jessica Chambers case. Such a brutal, sick, unbelievable, heartbreaking case. The possible wrong accusing and trying to convict a person. So let's continue. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications of when I upload. And let's get straight into it. So, some of the other people that online and the police looked at are people like Brian Rudd, who is somebody that Jessica dated in her senior year because it was a volatile relationship that he did it and Jessica was crazy about him, so they looked into him. The next one was her current boyfriend at the time, Travis Sanford, and Jessica was absolutely in love with this man. And they thought that maybe it was a hit because he was in prison, that maybe he thought that she was cheating on him and seeing other people behind his back. Then there was Roger Lynn Hentz, I think I said his last name right. Jessica's father, Ben, said that Jessica confided in him about Roger threatening her during an argument about drugs and that Jessica was afraid for her life. Unfortunately, Roger has passed away, and police felt like they didn't have enough evidence on him to support that it could be him. The next person is Ali Alsani, I think is how you pronounce it. So he was the clerk at M&M store, and he handed over the camera video footage to the police, and there was a part missing, just a little part missing, and people went nuts over this. Thought that he was hiding something and everything. It got so bad that this guy literally had to leave the town. Then there was a person in Iowa that called a reporter to say that he killed Jessica, and when they went to investigate, it wasn't Jessica Chambers he was talking about. A person confided in the family about being involved in her murder, but he actually had an alibi for that night. Then there was a rumor saying that it was a car accident by the way that the car was parked on the bank, but there was no marks on the fence or skid marks on the road to support this theory. So everyone that was investigating and involved in this case said no to that theory. So 9 months later, it was like late September 2015, the reward earlier in the year was up to $33,000, and the police looked back at the evidence and noticed that something was off with Jessica's phone data. They were looking at the phone pings and had help with the Department of Justice. So with phone evidence, they were able to tell that the pings were off by half a mile. So what they did was shifted the phone pings so they were in the right location. This also showed where she was during this missing hour right before the incident happened, before the fire. And it shows that she was at Quentin's house and around that dirt road that he said that they had sex that one time. Also, they were able to ping Quentin's phone to see that he was at his house during that time. And pretty much they're saying that during this whole time at night that they were together, their phones were on top of each other the whole time. And I'll explain the whole ping thing a little later. But they went to go find Quentin, and it turns out that he got married and moved to Louisiana like 7 months after the fire happened. And he just so happens to be in jail for the unauthorized use of a girl's card who also happened to have been murdered, and Quentin is the #1 suspect. I want to tell you guys though, when it comes to that, first of all, we don't know much about it. All I know about it is that there was no evidence or DNA evidence to place Quentin at the crime. Also, that's not our case, right? So I would like to ask you guys to not use that as judgment with this case, like add that in with your thought process, like, oh, he must have murdered that person, he had her card, and use that when deciding if he's guilty for this, because we don't know what happened with that case, right? If he did do that one or not. So they're two separate cases. We need to just focus on what's going on with Jessica. So please don't consider him for about that all. Okay, so let's continue. So since Quentin was in jail, police had the opportunity to talk to him, and he agreed, no lawyer, which is a big mistake, you guys. I just want to say that, we saw this with Melissa's case as well. She spoke without a lawyer. They can appoint you a lawyer if you cannot afford one. You should never speak to the cops without a lawyer, regardless if you're guilty or innocent. Never speak without a lawyer. This does not make you guilty. It makes you smart. So I've been watching true crime for a long time, and the way cops will twist stuff, anything you say will be used in a court of law. A lawyer will tell you kind of what is okay to say and what is not. Like, they're meant to help you, where the cops will just twist anything you say. Like, for instance, they bring up the fact that he had a gas can, but they never took it or brought it in for evidence. They talk about the sex thing, and because her pings after they shifted it was over that dirt road, they assume that, oh yeah, that's a part of their story. She had sex that night. But they did a rape kit, and they looked at her body, and there was no signs of sex, and her rape kit came back negative. So, they'll do anything to make their story plausible and make sense. But again, always get a lawyer, man. So pretty much they asked him again, what he did that day, and if he saw Jessica that night, and he said no. Then they brought up the whole messages and the evidence they had, the pings, and then they asked him, kind of why he deleted her contacts in messages. And his response is, kind of like, why would I have a dead person's information in my phone? Which I can kind of understand that, I guess. I guess. But after they kind of show him the evidence that they have, he ends up changing his story and saying that he did see her that night and he gave her money. And then he says he had an alibi for that night, and he was with a guy named Big Mike, and that he borrowed his vehicle that night. So the cops went back and checked the surveillance cameras and to talk to Big Mike and see if his alibi checks out. Well, it turns out that Big Mike wasn't even in town that night for his story to make sense. So they go back and speak to Quentin again, and he ends up changing his story and saying, oh yeah, we met at Taco Bell, and then we drove around a while, and then she dropped me off at home. 3 months later, the cops grabbed Quentin's mom and told her that they're going to charge him. She spoke to Quentin, and Quentin said, yeah, I saw her that night, but no, I didn't kill her. He doesn't have that in him. And then February 2016, the police arrested and charged Quentin Telus with the murder of Jessica Chambers. So on October 9th, 2017, they picked the jury for the trial. They decided to not use anyone around Panola County, and that's due to the media coverage that took place really heavily in that county. So they looked for another county that was a lot like Panola County. That landed them in Pike County, which was 250 miles south of Panola near Louisiana border, and it was a place that was mixed with races, so half black, half white, just like Panola. And the jury was selected by 3 p.m. and there was 12 jurors that would sit on this trial, 7 men and 5 women, and there was 3 alternates that were picked. Altogether, there was 9 black and 5 white people. And I hate to say stuff like this in this case, but it was mixed in with a race war, and that is just sad, but that's the reality of it. One of the jurors would ended up being excused right before opening trial, which ended up making it 6 men and 6, so 6 black and 6 white. So the trial officially started October 10th, 2017. And I'm just gonna give you like the key points of the trial. And the jury really followed this so intently, and I mean, that's a good thing. So the prosecution said how they thought the day actually went, and so they thought everything at the beginning of the day went as we said before, but they think when she got the call that woke her up, which was Quentin, like we said, she was seen on the M&M cameras talking to someone, and they think again that was Quentin, and they think that was him asking her to meet him at Taco Bell. And after they do that, they drive up to Batesville, and then when they get back, they head to Quentin's house, and there Quentin goes inside real quick, and Jessica makes that call to her mother saying that she'll be home in a little while. I love you. And her mom says, I love you too. They come back and Quentin tries to have sex with her, and Jessica doesn't want to, so she tries to fight him off. And they think it was at this point that either he strangled her or knocks her out and thinks that she's dead. And that is why the seat was reclined when they found the car. So because he thought that she was dead, he had to get her away from his house. So he drives the 2 miles away to the spot where the scene of the crime happens, and then walk to his house. And while he's walking to his house, he throws down the car keys. When he gets to his house, he drives back with the gasoline, sets the car on fire, and then heads off for his alibi. The reason for this? Denied sex. That is what the prosecution thinks. The defense reminds the jury that Jessica said Eric, and how Eric was not on trial. They brought up the fact that on the night of the fire, there was a black man hanging around the crime scene. Just hanging. He was told multiple times that he needed to leave, but he was staring straight through them with this weird look, straight to the car and through to the woods where Jessica would later come out, and no one got any information. But they would write down in their report that this man was very suspicious, and the defense was like, that was probably Eric. They brought up multiple different people to question, like firefighters, deputies, FBI agents, ATF agents, and Department of Justice. The defense was able to get out that there wasn't an exact timeline or known time when she was set on fire. So when all this would have went down, how can you really ask anybody's alibi? They went by when the time of the call came in. We also found out that the mayor wasn't even in town that night, so he was calling shots on the case from the phone. Well, how can you call shots if you're not physically seeing the evidence and the car and everything there? He also moved the car to the impound lot just shortly after the fire. They only looked at the car for evidence and the surrounding yard that it was at up to the fence, and they saw the keys, the phone, that was about it. A rag that they said had accelerant on it. They weren't able to tell specifically if it was a rag or clothing, but they kept saying it was clothing. Honestly, you can't tell. But if you ask anyone, there's 3 crime scenes, but the defense says 2, but there's actually 3. 1, of course, that car. 2, like the defense says, beyond that fence, on the other side of that fence, you don't know what could be on that side of the fence that the car was put up against. The 3rd one, where Jessica came out of, the woods. How do we know there's not evidence out there? Well, now we don't know. Makes me angry. I get so, Then there was someone Quentin said that was stalking Jessica named Derek Holmes. He was 25 at the time, and he lived in Cortland, and he was listed on the sex offender registry. But police said he had an alibi, and he was ruled out. What was that alibi, you probably didn't ask just now? Rubbing his mother's feet. Did they check his ping off of his phone? Probably not. Would a mother lie about where her child was? Most likely. Anyway, December 8th, 2014, so just a few days after the incident happened, we learned about this in the trial. A man named Jerry King and his daughter were walking down Huron Road, which is the road that the fire incident happened, and saw something shiny on the side of the road. He picked them up, they were keys, and he handed them to his daughter to play with. They got home, she played with them for 5 or 6 minutes, till he noticed Ben Chambers' auto on the keys. He called it in. I just want to say real quick that they didn't say Ben Chambers' auto, they just said Ben's auto. Anyway, called him in. Officer Tyler Mills is who he called. This Officer Mills asked King to show exactly where the keys were when he found them. He placed them down exactly where he found them. This officer takes a picture and then takes them into evidence. The thing is, they didn't do their job. They should have picked up these keys and put them into evidence when they found them initially the night of the fire. Honestly, we now have to trust a man who's been arrested a lot, which, I mean, I'm not saying that makes him a liar, but we still have to, at the end of the day, trust a man, and we shouldn't even be having this discussion, period. It should have been done. Anyways, they did DNA analysis on those keys and came back with 4 Y chromosome codes on them, and they did test Quentin's DNA, and he had some codes similar to that Y DNA, but he couldn't be included or excluded, pretty much meaning that they can't say yes or no that his DNA was on that key. We'll come back to that a little later. Now, let's talk about these phone pings for just a short time. The Department of Justice spoke at the trial and explained that they used what's called RTTs, and that's range to towers, which allows you to be able to be tracked by your phone to the distance of the cell towers. And what I told you earlier, what they did, because Portland's such a rural area, they said that the pings don't work correctly, so they shifted the pings to where they should be. We'll get more into that a little later. And then the trial ended October 16th, 2017, and the jury came back with their verdict, and when the judge went to read it and asked if everybody agreed, one of the jurors yelled out, "No," and then he said, "It says innocent, but I don't agree. I'm a guilty verdict." So the judge asked each individual jurors if they agreed and what their verdict was. Well, in the end, it was a hung jury with 7 guilty and 5 innocent. Do they not understand what? I don't understand. Anyways, there was a second trial on September 24th, 2018, and there was 9 black people and 3 white people, and they tried to show that this isn't racial. I don't understand. The only thing new that came from this trial is that the prosecutor said that the timeline when Jessica and Quentin were together, Quentin tried to force Jessica to have sex, and when she tried to get away, he suffocated her, then drove her to Huron Road, threw down the keys while he was walking to his sister's house. He grabbed her car, then pulled into his driveway. There is video footage from the M&M store of a car pulling into his driveway at that time, and that was him. He grabbed the gasoline can, drove back, set the car on fire, then took off to Batesville, where his car was shown on the M&M camera. Wow, that was exhausting. Okay, the defense pointed out that the headlights on the M&M camera do not show a vehicle's make or model of a car. It could have been anyone. Also, there's that dirt road next to it. You can't be certain that it's pulling into Quentin's driveway or that dirt road. Then, the other time, they said his vehicle drove past the M&M store to Batesville. That vehicle is going by so fast, you cannot really tell what type of car it is, let alone really anything about it. The defense calls up, and we're going to talk about the pings again now. The defense calls up a guy who actually made it possible for the 911 operator to be able to trace your call when you call in by using the towers and your phone pings. He stated you can't just shift phone pings to fit your story. Also, that the last phone call Jessica made was not pinging from the tower near Quentin's driveway, but it pinged from a tower 3 to 4 miles south of Quentin's driveway near a place called Pope. So right away, she couldn't have even been in that place that the prosecution is saying. Then the prosecution did something that, well, impressed me a lot. And I want you guys to do this at home, okay? They said that everyone's saying Jessica said Eric, not Quentin. Then he explained that her tongue would have been swollen, so you couldn't say continents. But why would you say Quentin when you say Telus to be more specific? If you place your tongue on the roof of your mouth, it would act as if you had a swollen tongue. If you say Telus, it sounds like Eric. Watch. Telus. Kinda does. Telus. So the jury came back a hung jury. So they declared a mistrial because the jury was actually split straight down the middle, 6-6. Now we're waiting to see if they try him again. So some final thoughts to think about when you're kind of deciding. So Jessica was set on fire. An accelerant was poured down her throat, and her skin was so tight around her from being burned, they said that she had a hard time breathing, taking in a deep breath. My question is, how would she have really been able to talk or say, I'm going to die? Or if she said anything, maybe a word, wouldn't it hurt so bad to even breathe or even talk? I mean, the accelerant would have affected, your lungs. So, wouldn't that be severe pain? Burns in her mouth, her esophagus. Would you breathing, talking, and then you couldn't get in a full deep breath because of how tight your skin is around your chest? Really, could she have talked? And wouldn't it have been unintelligible? Now for the keys. Quentin has said that in the past he has driven her car. The DNA analysis said that you can't tell how long DNA has been on keys. So really you can't use the keys as evidence because his DNA would be on the keys if he's driven it before. Just like if somebody murders my brother in the house, if you accuse me, well, my DNA's all over the house. If I've driven his car before and somebody murders him using his vehicle, my DNA is going to be on his car keys. You know what I mean? I don't know about that one. That's just a thought I'm kind of wondering about. The other one is that the fact that some people thought that Jessica was a snitch. And, she had accelerant poured down her throat. This is a very personal and brutal attack. Maybe this person is showing everybody that, don't go snitching because, you're telling somebody something. You're using your voice. You poured it down her throat. Or whoever, even though Jessica wasn't a snitch. Also, and lastly, they never interviewed or checked out any women for this. They specifically thought it had to be man. And I don't understand that. Shouldn't you rule out everybody and anybody? And there's no evidence in the car, meaning somebody's that smart to get rid of all that evidence, but is dumb enough to just throw the keys? Why would, I just don't know. It's something. That's it for today. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Quentin Telus is guilty? and tell me your reasons why. Or are you leaning somewhere else? Tell me all your thoughts down in the comment section below. Also, please be mindful of the family in case they read the comment section. So no hate comments when it comes to the family, please. Be mindful, okay? Also, your schedule for this week is Thursday. I'm going to talk about support systems and my mom, some of our stories in the hospital. Saturday is Def Leppard Saturday, and Sunday we are doing some doors. And Sunday's my mom's birthday, so that's it. I thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.